Welcome to Courageous Leadership Conversations. I'm Vera Turner. Today's topic is focused on using data to strengthen classroom practice and student achievement. Joining us to share her insights on the topic is Deirdre Pilch from Boulder Valley School District. Deirdre, welcome.
Thank you, Vera.
I'm so pleased to have you here today. What do you think is the biggest challenge that teachers face in using data to improve student achievement?
Without a doubt, the biggest challenge that our teachers have faced with using data has been just getting the right data, the data that really speaks to them about how their students are doing in the classroom, and then knowing how to adjust that instruction and then reapply the data to inform the next step of their instruction.
Now, what do you see your role and the role of superintendents in general in addressing those particular issues?
Well, our role is to ensure that we secure the resources to be able to provide our teachers with the appropriate assessments, with the appropriate interventions once they see where their students are and what their students need. We have an obligation to have the resources follow that to support the teachers. And then, of course, the professional development and ensuring that teachers have the proper training so they have the skill set to use the data and then adjust their instruction.
What strategies has your district implemented to improve classroom practice?
So I think the biggest thing that we've done is we have ensured that all of our teachers have collaboration time. We have professional learning communities throughout all of our schools, and so our teachers have time built into their school day to really look at their student data and then to talk with their colleagues about how to best adjust their instruction to best meet the needs of their students.
What are some of your district's achievements that you've done in this area?
So about 6 years ago, we began a data study on some of our dropouts in Boulder Valley. And so we pulled a case study on our dropouts, and we pulled all the test data we had on those students. We pulled the enrollment data, we pulled their demographics, we pulled their literacy scores, and then we put packets together for our principals to study those cases. And as a result of that data, we were able to identify the appropriate interventions and programming and instructional methodology that we needed to implement in order to have the most impact we could on our students to increase our graduation rate. And as a result, we've seen dramatic increases in graduation, and I'm really proud to say that we've decreased our dropout rate from 288 dropouts 5 years ago down to 88.
Wow, that's really great. Congratulations. That's very, very impressive. What have been some of your major challenges in implementing data?
So our biggest challenge has been having an effective data management system, a system that really pulls the data for teachers in a meaningful way and allows teachers to really know what their students are able to do and what their students know, and then use that data to adjust their instruction.
And how have you addressed this in your district?
So what we've done is we've really narrowed the data pieces. So because we still do not have what we would call a supreme data management system. So we've limited the number of data sources that we use, and we make sure they're our most meaningful data sources.
What is your biggest lesson that you've learned that you would share with other school leaders about using data to improve student achievement?
I think the biggest lesson I've learned is that we have to have our staff involved with us, helping us to determine what is the data that's most meaningful to them. And then we had to be willing to adjust. So if what we thought at first was the right data to be looking at, and then as we got in and as those teachers got in their PLCs and were using that data, if it wasn't the right data, then we had to be willing to change that up and adjust and begin to use a different data source. And so flexibility. We had to be very flexible in our work around our data. And then we had to be honest with ourselves about what the data was telling us and willing to make some hard decisions around where our resources should go to make sure that we were supporting the students who we most needed to support.
Thank you. Those were all great points, which I'm sure that other colleagues and district peers around the country will appreciate. Speaking of colleagues and peers and advice, one area of advice which you give to school leaders and how they would go about building a data-driven culture that would engage everyone.
The most important thing in order to have a data-driven culture is to really be willing to have the data at the classroom level and at the individual student level. When we look at data district-wide or even school-wide, it's not near as meaningful to the individual teacher or to the individual parent as it is when the teacher is able to see how his or her students in their classroom are doing, and when a parent is able to see the growth of their own child. That's when data becomes really meaningful.
And your district participates in the Closing the Gap program. How has your participation in the Communities of Practice influenced your work at the district level?
One of the coolest things of this involvement has been just the conversation with some of the other districts, and it's really impacted our use of formative assessment, particularly at the elementary level. So we have students now who are talking about what it is they're learning and how they know they're learning it, and then what they do themselves to direct their own learning. That's been really exciting to watch our fifth graders, for example, to do that kind of work themselves with each other around their own academic improvement.
Is there anything else, Deirdre, that you and I haven't discussed through our conversation that you think is very important that other school leaders would benefit from, that you'd like to share?
You know, I think we give a lot of airtime to talking about achievement gap and what is the achievement gap and what are those gaps that we're talking about. And I want to just remind everybody that we're really talking about opportunity gaps, and we're talking about from the very beginning of education for a child, that every child having whatever those opportunities are, whatever that support is that's needed to bring that child to the place of an even playing field with his or her peers. And it's about the